sciences was to become a medical doctor, because these are there are only three respected professions, right? A doctor, a lawyer, and engineer. And but it's life has changed, and I think it's time we move away from just putting people into these boxes. So when I went to the university in South Carolina, I started doing undergraduate research, and that's where I really discovered a love and a curiosity for research, and that I didn't really want to be a medical doctor.
Mm.
And so it was a tough decision. I didn't want to disappoint my parents, because he had me pegged as Dr. Phaedra. So maybe in some ways that's also why I went in to get a PhD. So I'm still Dr. Phaedra, even if I'm not a physician. And after I got my PhD in chemistry, there was an opportunity that arose to study further and deepen my research into peptides and chemical synthesis, and that was in Denmark. And I took the opportunity, got to Denmark, and basically I've worked there ever since. I transferred from academia into industry, and the last position I had before I became an independent consultant was working for one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. It's Novo Nordisk, and you probably know them because they supply and manufacture insulin, or probably now Wegovy and GLP-1 that you have people like Oprah Winfrey taking, so people can stay slim. So.
Interesting. Professor Meldal, how far back do you go? We're not trying to get your age or anything like that, but I'm sure you two would have started doing undergraduate research, long ago.
Yeah, so I'm actually an engineer of education, and this has been extremely beneficial throughout my career, because when I then went into the more fundamental sciences, I had this ability to make new instrumentation, make data analysis and so on from my engineering background, while I was still interested into more fundamental aspects of the science involved. So that has been extremely useful throughout my career. I then from the engineering school went to Copenhagen University for a couple of years, and then I went to a private fundamental research laboratory which was hosted by Carlsberg, the beer brewing company, for 23 years, and then I went back to Copenhagen as a full professor, heading the nanoscience center there, and then later on a center called Center for Evolutionary Chemical Biology, where we're doing all sorts of medicine-related research, and still are today.
Interesting. Okay, so welcome. Let me go over now to Dr. Centelli again, researcher and investments consultant. What will you be sharing this evening?
So this evening I will be focusing on the investment part of it. When I changed from being a scientist and working for a pharmaceutical company, one of the things that I ventured into is becoming an angel investor, because I firmly believe that if we want to have sustainable growth, there has to be a ways of supporting the brilliant ideas that come from entrepreneurs, and funding is just one of the ways that they can be supported. So I will be talking about how people can become, well, ordinary people like me can become angel investors and thereby support entrepreneurial growth in Dominica. But I will also be talking about what the government can do and the importance of having industry and public partnerships, as well as collaborations with the university, because having a science-based education is fundamental to building curiosity and innovation. So these are some of the things I will be talking about.
How can the region attract significant investment and drive sustainable economic growth? How would you tie this in to your lecture this evening?
As the name says, right, when people invest, they want to have a return on their investment. They want it to be done in a very easy way. They don't want to have to go through a lot of red tape, a lot of hassle. And so one of the fundamentals or fundamental things that need to be done in attracting investors has to do with the government investment strategy and investment policies, taxation policies, tariffs, and all of these things that are necessary or fundamental to the commercial growth of an industry. The other thing that investors look at, that if there's a company that's growing here, they want to make sure that the region has enough talent, because a business cannot be successful if you don't have the people who are skilled and educated, the people who have the drive to make that business grow. So they also look at talent. And I think in the Caribbean, this is not where we have our shortcoming. There is so much talent here in the Caribbean that would make it very attractive to investors. But as I said, there are many pieces of the puzzle that need to come together. So the talent is one, the government policies is another, and the other is the partnerships and the collaborations that can be made to other industries. Because especially if you think of manufacturing, there's a whole supply chain that needs to fall into place. So is that supply chain going to be very difficult? Do they have to get their parts or raw materials from all the way across the world? Or can they collaborate with other Caribbean islands or even with Latin America and South America to be able to get the raw materials? And of course, the entrepreneurs here, the people who have the drive and the ability to create businesses. And yes, the banks also have a part to play in that, what sort of loans that they can give to support both the entrepreneurs but also the investors. So many parts of the puzzle need to fall into play. But I think that we are well on our way in the Caribbean, especially in the talent area.
Professor Meldal, you too will give your perspective this evening. But there are several reasons to invest in the Caribbean. But what for a small island developing state like Dominica is the best way to promote investment opportunities? Of course, we know a lot about. I had a discussion with Dr. Kimo and Joseph before you all came in, and we know about the Caribbean, the CBI program that we have in Dominica. We're hearing now about angel investment. But what is the best way for us to promote investment opportunities?
Yeah, so there are two kinds of investment. There's an immediate investment in developing innovation sector or innovation, innovation environment here. But there's also the more important one, in my opinion, is investment in education. And this is also why the EU has asked us to be here, because they are trying to build a bridge where the knowledge, the huge knowledge space that is in the European universities could actually be very attractive to get Caribbean young people to actually take advantage of that, because investment in education is the one that gives the highest return on investment with time. It's not immediate, but over time, this is the best way that you can actually grow an economy. This has been shown in many reports that long-term investment in education is the best for any society. But the other type of investments, yes, I think it's very important that the Caribbean countries, they actually start getting together, and they start having an institution that can actually make decisions across the different countries in the Caribbean, so that you can develop a more sustainable market in the Caribbean, a more sustainable growth in the Caribbean, where you don't have to produce everything in every island, but you can actually have very collaborative and non-tariff plate exchange of goods, exchange of parts for development and growth.
What about the tourism sector? Of course, we have this. Should this be high on the agenda as well, Dr. Santile, the tourism sector? What about as well renewable energy and things like that?
The tourism sector has pretty much been the bread and butter of the Caribbean. Many Caribbean islands benefit a lot from tourism. We need to ask ourselves, how sustainable is that? Because it's a sector that is reliant on others, on external forces. So, yes, it has a place, but we really need to consider how do we promote tourism in a way that makes it sustainable and that reduce the reliance on outside forces. On the other hand, I definitely think that investing in renewable energy is a way to go. I mean, we hear a lot about the islands in the Caribbean that are plagued by electricity shortages. And going back to your previous question, that's actually a consideration for people to invest or move their manufacturing here into the Caribbean. Do you have, or is there a reliable source of energy to power the plants, right? And if you have outages all the time, or if you are highly dependent on fossil fuel based energies, then that's not necessarily attractive. So investment in renewables is definitely one of the things that are one of the ways that we need to go forward. Another thing I think we need to do is invest in using our local materials, whether it's for furniture, using innovation to convert some of our waste into innovative materials that can be used for building, so that we're not always dependent on materials from outside. I know from myself having to, repair my parents' house. Sometimes it's so difficult to get them building materials. Can we do more of that? Can we transform, for example, banana waste, the plant, the fibrous plant, can we convert it into materials that can be used for building? So we need to think innovative, we need to think local at the same time as we're thinking collaboration with outside forces, but not so much consumption of goods that come from outside.
Interesting. Dr. Kimon Jose, let me bring you in, and Dr. Barry Kazimi as well, because you mentioned earlier in terms of the format, there will be a question and answer segment, right?
Yes, there will be. So we will have the quote-unquote pleasantries first. So we have some videos, as I mentioned earlier, and then we will move into Dr. Sentile's presentation. And after that, we will open the floor for questions for a few minutes so that she and Dr. Meldal can interact with the public and to be able to answer questions based on the presentation of tonight, as well as other ideas that some people may have. And there's further chance for discussion and mixing during the cocktail segment afterwards as well.
Dr. Barry Kazimi?
Yes, let me just say first of all that lecture is timely, particularly given where we are in terms of entrepreneurship. Both Dr. Meldal and Deidre's area is science, but you see how they're able to merge the science and the business together. One of the key things that we discussed earlier is that it's our ability to start both sciences and entrepreneurship at a younger age. So I'm happy that they're going to speak out to those things, those issues, because one of the key things is that what Dr. Meldal was saying is that if you start the children at, say, 5, particularly in sciences, because of the way the mind is formed, that could greatly help them in terms of doing science better and actually utilizing the analytical part of science, transferring that into business. So we're quite excited to have them there to speak on those issues and how we can improve entrepreneurship in Dominica.
Start at a very young age. Dr. Sensili, I'm sure you agree with this.
Absolutely. If you think about it, right, nowadays children, they spend a lot of time on their phones or playing games from a young age, which is in contrast to how, well, my age is showing how I was brought up. And what you find is that they are extremely skilled at using the telephones, at using computers and AI and so on. And that's simply because their brains have been imprinted from a very young age. Now, I'm not advocating that we have to give young people phones. I think there are many negative things that come along with that. But if you can imagine something very similar with science, or chemistry, that from a young age, they, instead of the phone, then they have models, they have ways of playing and interacting with it. They go out in nature and they can actually see the chemistry or the biology in action in real life. So their brains become imprinted with that. So by the time they get to university, it's like breathing. It's a natural way of thinking. So that's the right approach, I think.
Okay, and Dr. Kimon Joseph, I know we had our discussion this morning, but I still want to bring you in again because you were saying, and I would like, of course, the professor and Dr. Sensile to know this. You were, in terms of how busy you are at the UWI Global Campus, this lecture is just part of many lectures that you have had already.
Yeah.
This one, of course, is different in that there's a collaboration with, I'm trying to get, not just with the NBD, but
with
EU's
EU.
Connexus 2025 Talk Series.
So yes, so it is a busy time, but as Barry's probably sitting there saying, but when is not a busy time, right, Barry? It's
tell you.
always always a busy time, and busy is good for us. And as I was saying earlier, it really is important for us to have these non-formal education opportunities for people to be able to interact with people who have done the research and have done the work. Sometimes in our society, people just talk, right? And then we think that that's okay, but it's important to be able to have the research and to have people who have already done the work to be able to come and share their work as well as their experiences and get the feedback from members of the audience and members of the public as well. So that is very important. So that is part of what is going on here in terms of UWI Global Campus. Of course, Ivona, like I said, we have our courses and programs. Some are wrapping up and some are starting again in terms of our continuing and professional education programs. We're also working on our intake in terms of the degree programs for the new academic year that's starting in August of 2025, and we're working with our new Guild of Students and our new alumni executive people to really come on board and plan programs. We have a church service coming up on the 8th of June, and we're inviting all our students, alumni and friends to join us at Truth and Grace Fellowship Global for that as well. So a lot of things, a lot of moving parts here at the University of the West Indies.
Dr. Sensile, what should be the main takeaway for the people who are at this lecture this evening? What would you like them to really take home?
First, I want them to be inspired to think that yes, they can and it is possible. That's the first message. And then the other messages would be, what does it take to make it possible apart from your own individual drive? So it has to be the message about the governmental policies. It has to be the message about how we can pool our resources and do angel investors to put, a wind under the wings of the people who have the brilliant ideas. The message about how critical it is to have partnerships within Dominica, within the private sector, the government, and the educational institutions to create this ecosystem that fosters innovation. And then the last one is that there needs to be inter-Caribbean island partnerships and collaboration. Because we've mentioned before that Dominica is a very small island. Most of the Caribbean islands are very small in population. So if you're just going to produce for that single market, it's not a way of surviving. So we have to think bigger than Dominica, bigger than Caribbean. And, the world is our oyster, as they say. Because the way things are going, you can manufacture in any part of the world. Of course, that's where the government policies on tariffs and trade come into place. But there's a lot that can be done with software and AI-based innovation and e-commerce that you can do basically from anywhere in the world. So I want them to come away thinking of the possibilities and that, yes, it can be done.
What I'm getting from this is that by effectively showcasing the Caribbean strengths and promoting our diverse investment opportunities and building strong investments or strong relationships more so with investors, the region can attract significant investment and drive sustainable economic growth.
Absolutely.
You want to stick a pin there? You want to add something to this, Professor?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be necessarily industry that originate in Dominica that build up the technologies and the platforms and the investment environment here. It can just as well be by invitation, and because you probably have a very well-trained, educated labor market here, that you could actually attract companies from overseas that come here and in good faith and collaboration with the island makes the investments that are necessary to establish production.
One thing I want to add, I will also be presenting some of the opportunities there are. Well, of course, there are opportunities with the EU, with the Connexus project, but there's also the Global Gateway, where you can find partnerships with European countries, not just for education, but also within the entrepreneurial space. And then there are also organizations that can help entrepreneurs in smaller regions to scale globally, because you need to have that network to be able to scale globally. So I'll also be presenting some of the concrete opportunities that people can capitalize on.
I was looking with Dr. Kimon Joseph earlier. We were looking at one of the main advantages of pursuing the angel investment, and we were looking at speed and straightforwardness. Break this down for us, Dr. Sensiler. And is that a true statement?
It depends on the regulations of the country, but in principle,
It depends on the regulations of the country.
yes.
Interesting. So there could be
You know,
bureaucracy.
for example, when you invest your money, when you get the returns, what's the taxation, right? I mean, that plays a role in that, making, what's the process of becoming an angel investor? What's the process of founding your country? So I think the policies of the country has a part to play in that. But in essence, I agree, it's quite simple. It's like the old cooperative, solution, right? Where you have some people pull their money together, because angel investment is usually not large sums of money, but it's just enough for the organization, the startup, to get started. And sometimes one angel can provide all that capital. Another time you would need to have 2 or 3 pulling their money together and supporting the startup. But the real benefit of angel investing is not so much the capital. It's also the knowledge and the experience and the expertise that the angel brings. Because usually we work very closely with the startup. We give them advice. We share our networks. We spot opportunities for them and we share it with the startup so that they can grow and succeed. So it's not just about money. Or as founders like to say, it is about having smart money and expertise and opportunities and connections.
Interesting. Angel investment. I know in the Caribbean we are well known for, well, a lot of countries in the Caribbean, the economic citizenship program. Of course, this is entirely different from the economic citizenship. Angel investment is different.
Yes, it's different, and
There's no correlation.
there you don't get citizenship by angel investing,
Right.
right? And I don't know how should I say this, and I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
I understand.
It's just two different initiatives, and some of them they have different measures of success. But what I can say from my experience in Denmark and also in different African countries, angel investing has been quite effective because they fill a funding gap, right? Venture capital and large investors, usually they come in after you have a prototype, after you have a minimum viable product, when you're ready to scale. But to get to the point where you want to scale, you do need to have the financial support. And that's where angel investors can come in to fill a gap.
Okay, we have guests in studio. We'll be wrapping up shortly. We have a discussion, UWI discussion, big lecture on tonight at the UWI auditorium on Emsall Road at 6 o'clock, right? 6 o'clock. And of course, many people are invited to this. As we mentioned earlier, this will be done by UWI TV, Dr. Kimon Joseph?
Yes, so the broadcast will be through UWI TV, but of course the public is invited to attend at our auditorium on Emsall Road, and then we'll have the cocktail after the presentation.
And there's an opportunity for people to ask questions as well.
both out the presentation itself, and then you find Dr. Sentile and Dr. Mildal as well as the ambassador afterwards to mingle and to ask questions at that time too.
So we're inviting everyone to go there. Dr. Barry Kazimi, of course, I know you were on another radio station, and I know
Yes.
it's promotion time for this big event, but how has it been going so far?
It has been going very good. I'm really pleased with what is being offered, particularly for business startups. One of the things I said earlier, in terms of business startups, that's one of the most difficult area to start, get the first set of investments to start the business. And research shows at least probably good about 60% of businesses when they start up, they fail. To have good investment as well as good advice, that can have the business succeed even better. The chances of it succeeding would be much greater. So I'm really excited about that. I think one of the things I said earlier is that we've had situations where we have a lot of businesses in Dominica, shops and those sorts of startups, but we haven't seen them grown into anything bigger. So I'm hoping that the new ideas that is going to be brought forth will actually help us expand in that regard.
Dr. Kimon Joseph, UWI, of course, would be looking at, or in fact, not even just be looking at, UWI has programs, even right here in Dominica, UWI Global Campus, geared towards this.
Yes.
That has
So we do have
a link with
our
this.
entrepreneurship programs in our continuing and professional education. Dr. Kazimi teaches that course. We are focusing this academic year, and we're going to be focusing next academic year on finance and financial training, financial management training for managers. So we started that this year. So we have several courses in terms of helping our entrepreneurs to understand finance and understand the workings of finance in terms of their business, even if they do not have a finance background from before. So even if they're starting a business, but they were not an accountant, we're bringing them forward in terms of learning how to understand money, particularly when money involves entrepreneurship and running a successful business. So we started that this year. We have had 2 or 3 courses, Dr. Casimir, in terms of that, and we have more on slates for 2025, 2026 in terms of bringing our entrepreneurs up in terms of managing their funding and looking for opportunities for investment, because we also have a course coming up as well in grant proposal writing for the new academic. So all of these are areas that we're opening up as our environments change, as we have people like Dr. Sentile and her colleagues and coming in and speaking to our people. We are thinking on our end about ways of continuing the discussions and continuing the training that our people will need to take advantage of the investment opportunities as they come.
Dr. Sentile, if you were to give in a plug for the UWI Global Campus in Dominica, in line of what Dr. Kimon Joseph was saying, what would you tell us?
I think what she mentioned are actually very, very important and very critical to fostering an innovative and entrepreneurial ecosystem. I like the fact that they are teaching soft funding, a grant proposal. I think the missing part, or one thing that could be added on, is teaching people how they can become angel investors, to close that gap or the valley of death where the idea fails because it does not have enough funding to get it to the point where you can attract institutional investors and scale. So, but I'm very excited by what Dr. Joseph just said, and I think we're definitely on the right track.
Teach people how to become angel investors. That just be a new course.
You will
present.
And I can teach that.
Yes, yes.
It's good. It's good. Dr. Kimon Joseph, I know we have to end because we have another program. In fact, we have already run out of time. But
the time goes by fast when we're at
yes.
DBS, I just want to really thank our presenters for coming on board and for including Dominica, the planners and promoters, for including Dominica as part of this Connexa series. And I want to really thank Dr. Saint-Hilaire and Dr. Meldal for being here in Dominica with us, traveling all the way from Denmark to be here in the Caribbean and to be here in Dominica as part of this series. And I want to invite the Dominican public to come and join us at the UWI Auditorium this evening for the presentation. And I look forward to lively discussions and questions after Dr. Saint-Hilaire's presentation this evening.
Professor Meldal, before we hear from Dr. Saint-Hilaire, closing remarks?
Yeah, so I think that there's a very good discussion here about investment and about the business growth. But there's one thing that we are sort of missing, and that is the ability for entrepreneurs to behave competitively in terms of their science, in the science behind the innovations, because of the lack of instrumentation in many places in the Caribbean. And we've discussed this at Barbados, where I think that it's quite important that there's a hub of infrastructure for science in the Caribbean, probably a common initiative between the different islands, where you can actually go or you can even submit your samples, your materials, your whether it's textiles or whatever it is, for analysis to have competitive data on your products. This is very, very important for the investment to succeed in the other end. So an analysis hub or a science hub where you have instrumentations that are competitive on the international arena.
Okay, Dr. Kazimi, and then we'll hear from Dr. Saint-Hilaire.
Again, I'm really grateful that we're having that sort of lecture, particularly given our circumstances in terms of entrepreneurship. As Dr. Joseph noted earlier, entrepreneurship is one of the key areas that we are big on at the global campus, because we believe that if we have more successful entrepreneurs, they will have a ripple effect into larger employment, more investment. Everybody basically benefits from it. So I'm really excited about that.
Dr. Saint-Hilaire, let's end with you. Let's get your closing remarks. We look forward, of course, to the lecture this evening.
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. Let's have a full house, and then if there's no space, then you can also look at it on live TV. And what I really, really want is to catalyze or support a revolution, a mindset change, a cultural change, that through education and entrepreneurship and investments and government policies, we can catapult Dominica and the Caribbean into a bright, sustainable future.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Kimon Joseph, tonight, 6 o'clock again, and you invite as many people to come to this lecture.
To this lecture at the UWI Global Campus Auditorium in Dominica. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Kazimi,
you.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Your future awaits. Connect, learn, and succeed. Your future waits. Connect, learn, and succeed. Come put your shoulders to the wheel. Continuing and professional education.